Hi gang, so if you are like me, then you are salivating all over the video that Casey Houle uploaded this past week to the Double Staff group on Facebook, which is chock full of fantastic ideas that both are awesome in their own right, as well as having gotten my creative juices flowing on other possibilities that they suggest. So I'm going to do two video series right here. The first video is going to be dissecting what exactly Casey is doing in that video, because it's a little confusing, but I can walk you through the kind of overarching ideas that he's exploring there and how to perform all the moves that he has in that video. And then the next video is going to be all about the different places where his ideas have taken me. Some possibilities for moving around his grid that either are not in his video or, maybe just things that are springing from my own imagination. Before we begin, however, a quick shout out to the folks at Flotoys. I've been using their staves now for a year in my double staff videos here. And one of the biggest problems I've been having, of course, is that the ends of them do not show up that terribly well on camera. So Sean and Prisna over at Flotoys have been kind enough to pass on to me two sets of these fuzzy covers that they sell for daytime spinning with their Podpoi, so that now the ends of these staves should show up bright as day for you guys on the other end of the internet over there. So thank you, Sean and Prisna, for making my staves prettier for my audience out there. Anyway, on to Casey's moves. So these are once again based around the concept of grid tracing, which is the idea that we have this kind of 9-cell grid. It almost looks like a tic-tac-toe board that goes around the body. I can show you what this looks like thanks to the magic of post-production right now. Traditionally, the way we've played around with this has been to, say, play around with the lower half of it, doing these hybrids right here, where, say, I'm performing anti-spin versus isolation. And the thing to bear in mind here is that as I'm isolating, I'm always isolating on the native side with my pinky end, right? So from this home base right here, I'm always proceeding as though when I'm performing an isolation, I'm essentially just keeping my elbow riveted in place, and the pinky end of my staff is right there with it, as the thumb end isolates around that point, right? So the non-native hand winds up doing an anti-spin where we have the thumb end doing the vertical line and the pinky end doing the horizontal line, yeah? And of course, the great thing that sets us up for is to be able to do these hybrids going back and forth from what's really this home base right here, where they crossed over each other. The thumb ends each pointed to the non-native side, and the pinky ends essentially flush with the elbows. And of course, the hand pattern right here looks something like an infinity symbol. And it's pretty cool in and of itself. But Casey's now decided to add an additional element to this, wherein instead of having the hands go around in together same around each of these grid corners, we're now having them go around in split opposites around these grid corners, right? It's still the same idea. It's still anti-spin versus isolation. It's just being done in such a way that the hands get to separate out and join back together, which for my money looks really, really cool. This is something I've been seeing him do for months, and it's really a treat to see him expand upon these ideas in this particular way. The way, again, you want to think about this is that you're always going to be isolating around your elbow end. If I'm going over to the left-hand side of my body, it's going to be isolating around my left pinky end. My right hand is going to be doing anti-spin around it. If I'm going over to the right-hand side of my body, I'm going to be isolating my right-hand pinky end and doing anti-spin with my left hand, like so. So this home base right here is where we switch back and forth between these two things. And each hand, once again, is kind of traveling around in a pattern that looks like an infinity sign. It just so happens to be that the hands are no longer even as they're doing that. They're kind of tracing around the pattern in slightly different ways, right? Now, this also suggests the possibility that we can do the same pattern up top, which of course we can, and Casey demonstrates it in the video. But now the rules are changing just slightly. Instead of isolating around the native elbow side, we're now going to isolate around the non-native pinky side, yeah? So rather than down here where I'm isolating around one of my white ends, up here I'm going to be isolating around one of my orange and red ends, yeah? And of course, this creates now an arrangement where I'm going to have to kind of reach through this pocket between my forearm and my shoulder, like so, on either end of it. So when I'm on my left-hand side, it's my right-hand staff that's performing the isolation. When I'm on my left-hand side, it's my left-hand staff that's performing the isolation, right? So it winds up looking like this. And now, of course, the thumb end is performing the horizontal line while the pinky end is performing the vertical line, yeah? So we have a bottom end that isolates around the pinky ends. We have a top end that isolates around the thumb ends. But how do we get back and forth between them? That's the rub, right? Because the problem is that while each of these patterns has a place where a hand might be here occupying that kind of middle shelf area, there's never a point at which both of the hands are there. That would only happen if we were moving in together, same like this, yeah? So how do we go about fixing that? Casey's solution to this problem is to take this line right here where one is down and one is up. And as you can see, from this position right here, we can isolate both of the staves around and essentially wind up in the position that we would want to be at for the top part of the pattern, right? And then, of course, we have the option to do the same thing coming back around down. So I have my left hand isolate around my thumb end, my right hand isolate around my pinky end, and I am free to come back to home base, right? So Casey's essentially playing around with this idea that I can start on my bottom end right here and use these isolations to switch around to my top end. Use these isolations to switch back, whoop, I did it wrong, to my bottom end, right? And to essentially come at this from the perspective of doing a tour around each of these points. And then, yes. Yay, there I got it. There's a number of ways that you can kind of approach this algorithm. The thing that makes me so unhappy in my head about it is that there's no way to do it perfectly symmetrical in each corner. Like, for example, if we wanted to do it in the fewest number of steps possible while keeping the staves always rotating in the same direction, we would have to do quarter of a rotation here, isolate around, we would do 3/4 of a rotation here, and then we would do 3/4 of a rotation here, isolate around, and then we would have 1/4 of a rotation here that would carry us back to where we started, right? So it'd be a quarter, quarter, 3/4, 3/4. Alternately, you can switch directions, so it would always be, say, quarter, isolate, quarter, and I'm going to get myself in trouble here, isolate, or quarter, excuse me. Nope, I'm wrong already. It would be, there we go. Quarter, isolate, quarter. Yes, so quarter, isolate, quarter, quarter, isolate, quarter. Or you could do it 3/4 and isolate, and 3/4 and 3/4, isolate, 3/4, and you're back to where you started, right? So, yeah, how you choose, where you choose to take that is completely up to you. I just think hanging out on either side looks cool in and of itself. That's just me, but you can try doing the tour if you want to, because it's pretty badass looking, yeah? Cool. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will be back in 2 weeks with more tech based upon this idea for y'all. Thanks for watching, and peace. This video right here exists thanks to the wonderful support of these folks right here. They found me at patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and were kind enough to make a contribution to continue my efforts to create educational flow arts content for people all over the world. If you or someone that you know has learned something from one of the videos that I've put out there, please consider going to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi or DrexFactor.com/support and making a small contribution to helping me continue this effort, putting out educational videos to people the world over and teaching them about the love of flow arts. Thank you in advance.